This is Movies, a podcast about the act of cinema, and with me today, wearing his character outfit or part of it from Mass State Lottery, is Hans as Devlin Cabri. Actually, you know what's kind of funny? I was thinking to myself, before the show, I should just tell Hans he should do a Clint Eastwood impression for the entirety of the episode tonight. Do you think you could do that for us?
What, just not talk or barely say anything and just look very serious?
No, you got to do the Clint Eastwood voice, and you got to scowl and say "punk."
Say chink a bunch. Is that
Yeah, you already
the
do that.
impression? Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, we do have Brendan back with us. Brendan, host of Tales from the Mall. Brendan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to be here. It's been too long.
Absolutely. I think what was the last show we did? Was it the Tokyo Vice show we did with Cisco?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not thinking of anything else.
I think that came right after our program on She Hate Me, which, by the way, I was thinking, because I just bought this
you know what?
VC. Yeah.
It was probably She Hate Me was after Tokyo Vice.
I think it might be. I might be confused because our podcast queue for Spotify and Apple is not the recording order. And sometimes, like, I just put out a show a couple of days ago on the movie My Son Hunter that we recorded, I think, in September, Hans?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
gets
something like that.
backlogged, and some things are more relevant than others, and you just force those out there. Yeah, I think you might be right that She Hate Me actually comes after, but I don't know. I'd have to go and take a look. We're going to be talking about Heat tonight, and I was tempted to pick up the double VHS cassette release of this movie, but instead, on the topic of She Hate Me, instead I got Malcolm X, Spike Lee's epic 3 hour
By the way,
film.
unfortunately, My Son Hunter was never relevant. Apparently, we thought it was going to be bigger than it was, and then it was such a piece of shit that no one actually cared.
Yeah, people only cared about it for like 2 days. Brendan, did you see My Son Hunter? Do you watch any of those like I hesitate to
Like,
call it propaganda, but it is obviously propaganda, but they're just so over the top.
no. I wish I'm kind of intrigued. Is this like a right wing is it right wing or is it
Oh
like
yeah.
Oh yeah.
They were trying to do like a Wolf of Wall Street thing with Hunter Biden, but in a
Mhm,
way that's also informative to the viewer. So they drop
mhm.
in a bunch of like, well, here's all the Russian collusion that occurred with the Bidens and this and that. And it just kind of, I don't know, it's incoherent. And Hans, how
Okay.
would you describe it?
It stinks. It's boring and it should be fun because of, how supposedly wild this character is, but it's just boring and bad.
Does Kevin Sorbo play Joe Biden?
That would have been
that
an improvement, I think. The guy
that
they
would
got
rule.
doesn't really, yeah.
No, I
No.
mean the guy who plays Biden is somebody. He doesn't, See, here's the thing too. The guy who plays Hunter Biden, he's not like Hunter Biden at all, but he's like a good actor. He's actually good in the movie. And the guy who plays Joe Biden is pretty good, but it's littered with weird like cameos and co-stars. Like Gina Carano just decided to take a role there, and she's talking to the camera, and you can tell it's like all shot after they had done the movie itself.
She's
Um,
like, what is it? She's like a driver or something, and she just show up to be like, isn't that shitty? And then she goes off screen and he's like, what's the point of
and there
having
are
her
sound
there?
cues like wow, wow every
Yeah.
time when she's talking. It's so peculiar.
This sounds bad.
Yeah, you don't say. Uh,
It speaks to, I think, um it's kind of a stupid thing and frustrating when people like refer to party politics and like the Republicans being controlled opposition and all that stuff. But if they weren't controlled opposition, they would probably make more biting and interesting stuff.
mhm,
You know
I
what I
think
mean? Like
so.
you look at that and they say, they're setting these people up as clowns. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't
It's
know.
very it's very difficult to take them seriously when that's what they put out. And I think we had a really good discussion on that episode. Go check it out if you haven't, because we talk about how um it's sold as the opposite of Hollywood, but at the same time they're trying to do kind of like the same thing. Like they don't really punch hard enough for it to feel like, oh, okay, so this is the opposite. of what Hollywood does. So at the end, it just becomes bland and just like, all right, then what's the point of this existing?
Well,
I see your
the
point.
people who are right wing that work in show business, that work in film now, don't really seem to understand what they want to do, right? So you had the Daily Wire acquired Bonfire Legend, and they tried to do a couple of films which were just kind of like generic action or thriller movies. And like the Western they did, I think was like fairly well done. I didn't have any gripes with that. It was just kind of, I guess, if I had one gripe, not particularly memorable. But those don't make money compared to these documentaries that they keep dropping on whatever inflammatory subject. So they're incentivized to keep doing more of that. But that doesn't flip anybody. That doesn't convert anybody.
Yeah.
And not to get onto politics. Obviously, we had an election this week, and I watched the Scott Adams. I was kind of out on Scott Adams for a second because after
You still,
2020, he just seemed loony to me. He like broke because his prediction was wrong, and he just started using the F word a lot, saying "fuck you" to his audience. And it's like, what? This is Gilbert's creator.
yeah,
He doesn't talk
He's
like
very
that. Why is he
cranky.
talking like that? Yeah, but he was like a mild mannered, kind of just smart, reserved guy before then. And then he got angry, and I think his young wife left him.
Yep.
So personality turn. But I watched a video of his today where he was essentially saying, well, the reason why the election turned out the way it did is because TikTok, is because women watch TikTok, single women watch TikTok. It doesn't matter that these cities are decaying or anything like that. TikTok won the day. And I think there might be some truth to that, in that it's a lot easier to go on autopilot politically and culturally if you're being fed entertainment that instructs you to just think a certain way, act a certain way, and then reassures you that there's comfort in that. And I do think that's probably the ultimate problem as far as why these two things do not match, is because for an entire atmosphere you have My Son Hunter.
Yeah.
So
That sucks, dude. They should make a My Son Hunter TikTok video.
they should have released it like back in the day when you go on YouTube, it'd be like part one of 12 when you tried to watch a movie that way. That could have done something.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, TikTok. I think it actually should be illegal because it just is. I think it's too stimulating. It's too addictive.
I
It's
agree.
frightening. I don't have it on. I don't have TikTok. I can't.
No, I
It's
just
not for
seeing
me
the
anyway. But you know.
mhm. Just seeing the influence of it over on Instagram, where it's like you recommended all these reels.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
like you check out like one girl shaking her ass, and suddenly that's your whole feed all of a
Yeah.
sudden. And then it's like obese women shaking their asses.
Sure.
And that's
Sure.
not really what I
and
signed up for.
That's
It,
says
that's
obese men dressed like women shaking their asses. Just like what? How do we get here?
Well, what were we doing back in November when we were shooting Mass Stay Live? We were talking into Jerry's phone to see if it influenced his Instagram results, and it did. Like I said, like Jack Nicholson 4 times, and then all of a sudden he was getting Jack Nicholson results for the search feed. And then I don't know. We did. I think we did more niche or specific things than that, and it also happened to pick up on it and then feed it into his Instagram. It was very uh,
oh wow.
discomforting. Yeah. But we are talking about a great film tonight. We're talking about Michael Mann's Heat. This is not a movie we've covered before. We've covered a lot of Michael Mann films on this show. We did his entire 80s filmography with Kid Polaroid, Kyle Miller, and then we obviously did the Tokyo Vice show with you and Cisco. And now we're getting into Heat and also
We also
Heat
did Miami
2.
Vice.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. And a little bit of LA Takedown, which is the basis, the seed of which Heat was stemmed. So why don't we just get into the origin of your experience with Heat? When did you first catch this movie? Because I'll tell you what, I for the longest time was avoiding Heat for no particular reason. I was just such a big fan of. I had a particular idea in my head of what Michael Mann's style was because of Manhunter and Thief, and I didn't like the idea of checking anything out that would venture away from that because it was so specific. This idea, and I deliberately avoided his '90s work. As a matter of fact, I skipped over and I checked out the Miami Vice remake, which we covered, and I only got around to Heat in 2020, so that's very late. But it's generally considered, I think, one of the great crime films, maybe the best crime film of the 1990s. When did you discover Heat, Brendan?
Oh, I'm sure it was when I was a young man, and I like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro were like the most important people in my life. I for
Hmm.
some reason, and that scene where they're in the coffee shop, that was the first time they were ever on screen together, and that was important for me to see. I didn't I saw it more recently because I bought the Blu-ray used, and I watched it, and then I watched the commentary by Michael Mann, and it's a really thoughtful commentary where he talks about the genesis of the characters, and Neil McCauley, he was a real guy. And um and and then I showed it to my dad, who shockingly had never seen it, even though he's like really into like that boom, that dad core,
Hmm.
what I call dad core, like movies that he showed me, like Godfather 2 and The Deer Hunter, and those kinds of things, but he'd never seen it. And I think he was really impressed with the acting. I think he thought it was a little long.
Mm.
I happen to think it's like the greatest movie ever made, and just an absolute work of art. Well, just every scene, um, the composition, the planning, and you can just tell and I'm not surprised that there's a rough draft of it in the form of LA Takedown, because it's that sharp, you know, like it's the kind of movie that would have a rough draft, because you that's an amazing thing that you have in the form of LA Takedown, this rough sketch of the movie that Michael Mann could have gone back and said, I like this, I don't like that, I want to add this. He actually had that work of art that he could look at and fix. And I mean, for a made for TV movie, it's really good. It, if you were to watch it as a thing, like if you told me it was made after Heat, you'd say this is a parody or something,
Yeah,
It's
that's
amazing.
how that's how I
Isn't it
saw it.
amazing though how similar some of the way that the actors sound, the rhythm, the way they speak is so similar to Heat. Like that scene where the guy who eventually becomes the Danny Trejo character, Trejo
Yeah, yeah.
in
Right.
he sounds exactly like Danny Trejo when he's lying on the floor and saying those lines. It's pretty uncanny.
Well, the guy that plays the Pacino character kind of sounds like him too. Even though it came out what
He
six
does.
years before Heat. It
Whoops.
at times, yeah, it sounds like he's just doing a Pacino impression. Like
I agree.
I didn't know well, I had no idea what um LA Takedown was. Laura's just said, "Oh, it's a twofer, so you have to watch this too." And I was like, "All right, I don't know what it is. I just assumed it was another Michael Mann movie." And then it started, and I was like, "Hold on, this is just it's the same movie. It's like the same movie with more mullets.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference. And then yeah, the characters just for whatever reason sound a lot like what we end up getting with Heat 6 years later.
So
True.
I think the story with LA Takedown was that was going to be his third procedural crime series, right? Didn't work out.
Mhm.
And was it re-edited as a TV movie, or was that just the pilot, the basis of what they were going to go at? Like, I know with Crime Story, Brendan, have you ever seen Crime Story?
I saw the pilot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the pilot's probably the best of it. That was directed by Abel Ferrara, I believe. Um, it's Abel Ferrara directed that pilot and showcases it at like exhibits as a film. He thinks of it as a film, but obviously it was used to launch what came after. And I thought Crime Story, at least season one, and especially the earlier episodes in season one, is pretty solid television. And I guess by the time LA Takedown hit, Michael Mann had just kind of expended his worth in the television medium to that point after I think it was something like 4 or 6 years of Miami Vice, Crime Story being on the air for 2 years. Uh, People were kind of done, I guess, and it didn't take, which is a good thing because then he goes and does Last of the Mohegans and everything else he does in the 1990s. Um, Yeah, I mean, I've seen bits and pieces where it's a comparison, side by side comparison between Heat and LA Takedown, and it really does seem one for one between the
Absolutely.
two.
It's also I was very impressed by the shootout scene because if this was done as a pilot or as a TV movie, there's a lot of bullets and a lot of violence that happens. So I was not expecting that from a TV movie, and you can
Sure.
tell that this was done what in the late 80s, early 90s because of the tone that it has. Something that you definitely could not do now. If you watch the procedurals that you get today, everything is so sanitized and they don't go there. And this just feels like a completely out of a different time, I guess,
Oh, really?
which it
Have you
is.
watched
But
Chicago PD, Hans? Have you seen Chicago PD?
no, I
Yeah.
don't even know what that
L
is.
It's
LA Takedown is no Stump Town with Toby Smolders.
It's now Walker, the remake or
the
prequel of
reboot
Walker. Yeah, whatever that is. They did a series with like these kids or
with
something. It's like
Jared
a side.
Padalecki, who you
Yeah,
frequently get comparisons to, which is crazy because
yeah,
he's got luscious locks and you have nothing.
yep.
The great Jared
Mine are
Padalecki of
gone.
Gilmore Girls.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I started watching Gilmore Girls just abruptly, I think last year or the year before that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then I stopped and it just didn't finish. I don't know. Dawson's Creek was the same thing. I was all in on those early WB shows just out of the blue last year.
Dawson's Creek is pretty good.
It is good. It was much better than I was expecting it to be for something that I averted my entire life, especially as a teenage boy. I turned that on. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of like well written. All right.
The reruns were the talk of the town when I was in high school.
Mm.
Like
I think
everybody was watching those.
I'll start worrying when you tell me that you started rewatching Seventh Heaven or something like that. You know, I feel like you're very getting pretty close to that.
Great
I thought
show.
you, I thought you were going to say because you're going to have to watch that at some point for us to do a retrospective
Yeah,
episode
well,
on it.
that too. Yeah,
No,
Dawson's Creek.
You could do a
yeah.
little trade. You could get burnt. You could watch Burn Notice. Although I expect you've already done that.
Well, we covered Burn Notice the movie for what was it, episode 200?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all you've seen, right?
No, I went and I watched the pilot for that episode too.
Okay.
So I'm not completely unversed on Burn Notice, but I have no intention of continuing Burn
Well, I'll
Notice.
watch it. I'll watch at least some of it before Hans's
Nice. Yeah.
appearance on Tales from the Mall.
Hell yeah, we can talk about Burnout as the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I just found out that they did a sequel to R.I.P.D. that failed. Was it Jeff Bridges and was it Ryan Reynolds
Yep.
movie? And they
Wow,
replaced the both of them with Burn Notice, with the guy from Burn Notice, Michael Weston.
Yeah.
So he plays them.
He
That's the
plays
sequel.
R.I.P.D.
Yep.
Burnout is playing R.I.P.D. too. That's his
I
name.
found that on the go-to torrent site when I was looking at the Aqua Teen movie.
How was
Check
that?
that out. That was actually, I'll tell you what, the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie was uh, better than I was expecting it to be. Not like good as a movie, but the humor didn't change at all in 15 years. So, I hate when they do that comedy revival thing where it's like, all right, now, this is a man out of his time. We got to explain his big character behaviors because they're very un-PC and kind of be self-referential to that. They don't do that. They just tell the same old jokes, and
that's good.
I appreciated that. It
What
shows
like
integrity.
for what have they done that? Like you know,
What, like stuck by their guns essentially with
no,
their.
no. I'm just trying to think like when they like resurrect a character or whatever, then they got to make him seem, they gotta
Well,
they
They got
got
to
to
update
explain
it.
it. Yeah,
Hmm.
didn't they do Wonder Years, but now the family's black and he's like, oh, look at all the
Well,
racism that we're
that's not the
dealing with.
same. That's not quite the same. The great thing about the new Wonder Years is that Fred Savage got fired from it for, I think, hitting on an intern or something. He wound up getting Me Too'd. Uh,
Hmm.
Little Fred
Why
Savage.
even be
yeah,
in the business?
yeah, exactly. There's a great story about him being on the Wonder Years as a child and talking down to the makeup lady and being like, "Yeah, so we're getting dinner tonight, right? Or else you're fired." Like he was pulling that shit as a boy.
Hell
I
yeah.
mean, with that last name, he has to, right?
Yeah, I get.
Hell yeah.
And then what, 10 years later on Boy Meets World, he's basically playing that character. He's playing like the pervy professor trying to get with Topanga, and they played that as a story.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got
So,
confused there for a second. I was like, no, he was the kid, but no, that was his brother.
right. Yeah. So, but yeah, Heat. Something I forgot about with Heat was just how stacked this cast is.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It's all over the map. You have just a wide swath of stars in this
Henry
movie playing.
Rollins.
Yeah, he popped up, and I was just like, wow, I completely blotted out that he was in this movie. Same with Jeremy Piven as the doctor who's patching up
Mhm.
Val Kilmer. This is something that, Christopher Nolan obviously aped the
Oh my
the
God,
entire thing for Dark Knight, right? But that is something that he does as well, putting like a known quantity in a completely pointless role in his
sure.
movies. Like the guy from Reno 911, I think pops up as a doctor in Dark Knight Rises for 2 seconds. What is it? Tom Lennon, I think his
Tom
name
Lennon,
is.
yeah.
Oh
Hank
yeah,
Azaria plays a guy that fucks in this. I was like, wait a second,
oh yeah.
he's the Hank Azaria. Homer Apu is is the guy that fucks in this. Pretty good, pretty cool. But yeah, every for the first what half hour, maybe 45 minutes, every new scene is just like, oh shit. Oh well, I was like this. I was just like, oh, I recognize that face. Hey, it's the guy from the insurance commercials. There was just a lot of just yeah recognizable face. Little Natalie Portman is in it. She's very annoying in it. But yeah, it was just I was not expecting such a stacked cast. I haven't seen this movie in like 20
The
years.
shitty
So
stepdad from Terminator 2, Ralph, he plays in this movie. Did
He's
either of you
well,
guys
he's
recognize him?
Waingro in he's Waingro in L.A. Takedown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they bring him back. He's one of the few guys, maybe the only guy they bring back from L.A. Takedown.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
you get that guy. Well, so here's the thing that I recalled this last time I watched Heat. You've got that guy William Fick. Is it William Fickner?
mhm.
I think.
Plays
Yep,
the insurance guy.
Yeah,
Van Zandt.
He
Yeah.
he's in the opening scene of Dark Knight,
that's right. Yeah,
and
he's.
that makes the Heat connection extremely explicit.
Mhm.
Because that opening scene in Dark Knight is just like a Heat is like a Heat tribute scene.
It absolutely is. He was trying to go one for one with Heat, and visually, I mean, aside from like the shootout, I mean, no, he actually doesn't get close. He like Dark Knight's a good looking movie, but Michael Mann just has so much creative genius with how he styles his shots, and something that I find to be the case with probably all of Nolan's films is that his dialogue is always very surface level. It's always like people stating the most generic shit for the most part. And Michael Mann has like a good method of, to some degree, capturing how people speak. Maybe that's just not a priority for somebody like Christopher Nolan. I haven't seen Tenet, though, by the way. Maybe that changes with that. Maybe it's very George V. Higgins esque. I doubt it. But
Well, maybe
anyway,
Christopher Nolan has like even more autism than
It
Michael
appears.
Mann,
Yeah. Look,
who I think is autistic.
is there anyone in Hollywood that has a thicker neck than Henry Rollins? That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, this man's head and neck are the same width. It's just like a Lego person.
He totally is a Lego person.
I also forgot that John Voight was in this movie, and John Voight
He's
has this
great in it.
quiet sinisterness to his character.
It's gross.
It's very
Scaly face.
kind of reminds me of Revolver Ocelot from the Metal Gear Solid games. I think I got that character's name right. It's been like 25 years since I played that, but he's got that kind of look to him. Um, One of the few people to get out of the movie clean.
Yeah,
So,
he gets
um,
out of
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
thing
yeah,
because in
Yeah,
Heat two, he makes
oh,
it
this
to
is
the end of the book. Can we spoil in this show?
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Is it Tex? Is that the character's name? John
Oh, I
Voight?
would have to.
Nate. It's
Nate,
Nate.
right?
Nate.
Nate.
Yeah.
And he makes it to the end. He's like, and so shockingly, so does Chris Shiherlis, the character played by Val
Val.
Kilmer.
Mm.
So what is he two about? Like after we end
Well,
here where
Heat two
you
is
have
both
that.
prequel and sequel.
Yeah,
And
you
Oh,
get
okay.
you get before, you get after, and I found that Heat Two takes not just it. it's a sequel to Heat, but it kind of also feels like he's revisiting his 80s tracks a bit, where you have like sex crimes and whatnot. You get a little bit of that in Heat,
Mhm.
obviously. Um, but it is much more explicit and delved into with that book, where it feels almost like a slight in the world of like something like Manhunter a
Mhm.
bit, which I appreciated. Now, Brendan, did you read it proper or did you listen to the audiobook like I did?
I listened to the very good audiobook as read by Peter Giles,
Hmm.
who does a great Al Pacino impression.
Yeah, he's good. He does a very good job. It's not over the top. It doesn't feel like, somebody
I mean, yeah,
doing an SNL style impression. It's just subtle enough.
he had to do it though.
Mhm. That's probably why they cast him, because he could deliver that sort of cadence. Somebody wrote a review, and I had this in my head at points as I was listening to it, saying, this audiobook's horrible because he sounds like a movie trailer guy. And
Oh
so
yeah,
during like the more action packed sequences where it's like there's an explosion or something in the cars, whatever, um, I had that in my head and it
that's
almost
true.
spoiled it for me. Like, oh yeah, this does kind of sound like coming soon to a theater
It's
near you.
read by Pablo Francisco.
Well,
Yeah.
You remember from
I read a bunch of like commentary about the book, and the audiobook on Reddit of all places. And yeah, somebody brought up that he sounded like a movie trailer guy. They brought up the fact that oh geez, the character who is the he's like he becomes a pimp, and he was both a home invasion, you know, home invasion thief, but also sex criminal. What was the character's name? I forget, but I thought it was going to be Wayne Grow at the beginning of the book. Like, this is the origin story of Wayne Grow, but it turned out to not be. It just turned out to be like a even like worse Wayne Grow type
Hmm.
guy.
Uh,
And you get backstory about Neil McCauley and why he has his his uh life philosophy in the movie of not getting attached, lest the heat be around the corner,
mhm.
lest you feel the heat around the corner. Which, by the way, I should say, I live my life with the heat constantly around the corner, and I'm fine. But as it turns out, he had a Mexican girlfriend, and she died.
Yeah.
And somebody pointed out in that in Heat, he explains it differently. That he learned that philosophy in prison.
Yeah,
Uh,
I didn't catch the inconsistency there, but it
well, neither
also
did I, and I don't much care.
no, I don't think it goes against his character. I mean, that feels in line that he wouldn't open up in a sort of personal way with anybody. I mean, even with this girl who's in the movie, it's like a very forced relationship, and you get the vibe just from his like dinner where everybody's
Mhm.
having a blast with their significant other. He's just like, I guess I'm supposed to do this, right? And so he
Yeah,
phones her up and is like, yeah, I guess it wasn't a one night stand for me either. And he just strings her along, I think, because he feels like I have to have something other than this.
right.
And at the end of it, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have anything other than just like Al Pacino, really debatably. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's actually true for his character, even though he thinks it's true.
Yeah,
Um, has this limited scope of what is right for that life, for him, for that
yeah.
character.
Well, but a thing that the book does well to explaining motivation in the movie is the fact that his girlfriend, that his Mexican girlfriend that he had before the events of the movie was killed by like the Wayne Grow type character.
Mm,
It makes it make more sense that he goes back and kills Wayne Grow in Heat.
right.
You
I
know,
completely agree. I mean, I wouldn't say that his character at the beginning of the film Heat doesn't have like this sort of developed sense of I don't know, like a sense of justice that's logical for what his career is, right?
Mhm.
There's obviously a code that he has in place as far as that goes,
Yeah.
but this sort of last minute compulsion to right or wrong or something, it doesn't feel out of step with the character, but I think it reinforces his decision to do that
Mhm.
much better.
Well, and one thing about like the kind of like the super practicality of Neil McCauley, who's like you know how they've got that in the middle of the film they're taking a score, you know, and it's they're just like, you know, it's like a break-in,
Mhm.
you know, it's not a heist, and they just kill the score in the middle of it and just walk away, you know, that kind of like super practical, like you know, I'll give up everything if I feel danger. Like it's not, it's something aspirational, but you know, a human being can is still a human being even if they have a code, and so it makes sense even without the backstory from Heat 2 for him to say like fuck this Waingro guy, like he fucked me really badly and like I want to kill him, you know.
Mhm.
They play it a lot. That's one of the big improvements in the story of Heat versus LA Takedown. In LA Takedown, he goes back to kill Waingro. Waingro shoots him through the door, and Vincent Hanna shows up at the last minute and he dies. And it's better that Vincent Hanna kills him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
was my biggest issue, I think, with LA Takedown, that it takes away a lot from their relationship. You know, you have that whole scene also at the cafe when where they're talking to each other, and it kind of like a cat and mouse type of thing. But then the fact that at the end he gets shot by someone else, and then we have a happy ending with the Pacino and the mullet character, it felt kind of I don't know, kind of very cheesy and very unearned. Uh, and then when you watch Heat and you have that little bromance moment at the end when they're like, "I got you," and he just dies there. It's a lot more impactful than just seeing him walk out of the hotel with his wife or whatever it is that happens, and it's just a whatever ending there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is just my own reading into that. My interpretation is around the time that Natalie Portman, his stepdaughter, winds up trying to off herself, even though Neil McCauley's taken out a number of Hannah's colleagues in that gunfight. It kind of just feels like he doesn't want to go after him. Like he doesn't want to add to the body count. Like he's checked out. He wants an excuse, but it's just not in him to do that ultimately. Not comparable at all. But sometimes I'll get into a mood like that. Like, fuck it, I'm not going to correct this thing in this edit or something. I'm just not going to do it. I don't care. I'm going to move on to it, and then I'll go watch TV or something for like 20 minutes. I'll just be like, I gotta go back and fucking correct that edit. I gotta fix it right now. And I think that's like a similar pathology to this character, where it's like I want to be here and do this, but I gotta go. I just gotta go get that. I'll be right back. It'll take me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. And that's what he's all about. And he does it, and it is a much more climactic conclusion than this very ratty, shitty, evil character getting one over at the last minute.
Yeah.
Is Waingro also a Nazi in LA Takedown? Because I feel like that's not much of the focus. I don't think no, okay. Because
No.
I on Heat, when he's with that prostitute, that the underage prostitute that he kills, and he's just chilling there with his shirt off, and you see the eagle and the swastika and everything, and I was like, wait a second, I
Well,
didn't. There's another layer of evil with this guy that we didn't
well,
see until that.
That
I
might
mean
just be prison tats,
that's a
right?
prison. I mean, that's definitely an accuracy for, you know, Michael Mann had spent a lot of time interviewing prisoners of Folsom at the state prison in
Mm.
California. And knew this there was a real guy, Neil McCauley. He was a heist guy from Chicago and ended up being killed by a police officer, a Chicago police officer, I believe, very similar to like the Vincent Hanna character. By the way, in the book, Vincent Hanna in the prequel, there's a segment, Hans, that takes place before the events of Heat, quite a bit. It's divided into two kind of parts. Chicago pre the events of the movie. Neil McCauley and his crew are in Chicago. They're doing a score, and in the meantime, Vincent Hanna, the Al Pacino character, is a police officer in the Chicago Police Department, and he's chasing after this home invader who also commits sex crimes. The home invader hears about a score that the McCauley crew is doing, in Mexico stealing money from a drug cartel. They steal the money from the drug cartel, and this Wayne Grow style character, for Christ's sake, I can't remember his name. He takes their score and kills Macaulay's girlfriend. Okay, so then it jumps ahead past the events of Heat. Neil Macaulay is dead. Vincent Hanna is now a police officer in Los Angeles, and he's trying to find this new, this Wayne Grow, this super Wayne Grow character is now in Los Angeles himself, and Vincent Hanna is hunting him. Well, meanwhile, the Val Kilmer character, Chris Shiherlis, has gone to Paraguay and has ingratiated himself with these Chinese Paraguayans, and he starts and he has basically has a his girlfriend is this super smart Asian lady, like crazy smart, you know, basically genius level IQ, who he starts a romance with and ultimately never gets back together with his family because he's with this woman and they're doing and they're and that was a confusing thing, and maybe you agree, Jay, of what exactly it was that they were up to, like trying to they were doing something with defense technology,
Mm.
but that was probably the least interesting part of the book was this Shaherless with this Asian woman, and I think Michael Mann likes the Asian ladies.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, leave it to Michael Mann to have that component in every single one of. I mean, now it's cross medium.
Yeah, Miami Vice, where Colin Farrell is with the this that's the same character, right? That Chinese woman from Miami Vice, that's the woman who's in
Yeah,
basically like
And then you have Tokyo Vice, where all of them are like that.
Miami Vice, Tokyo Vice, Heat 2, Black Hat. Does like Christian Bale or Johnny Depp have like a secret Chinese railroad worker they're sleeping with in Public Enemies, or what's I don't know. I feel like I'm missing one here, but
well, yeah, we're just gonna get straight Michael Mann Asian pornography.
Michael Mann WMAF filmography. That'll be a future show.
No, yeah, it'll just be called WMAF.
Yeah. What do you think about the fact that Michael Mann, and who knows if he'll actually do this, um, wants to do an adaptation of his own book? Do you think he wrote? Do you think he wrote a significant amount of the book? It definitely feels like Michael Mann,
As a
and even if
script,
it's, yeah, I think maybe he did like a long outline or something, and she wrote the bulk of it. But it feels, I don't know, it just feels very Michael Mann compared to most tie-in books or like an author or rather a filmmaker venturing into the author's medium.
totally. Well, who is Meg Gardner? Like, do we are we supposed to know who this is, or does she have a reputation? Why her?
Hans, you want to take a look at that? Is she just an Asian
Yep.
woman by
Oh yeah,
any
No,
chance?
see
no,
that?
she's white. uh, 14 published novels, including 5 in the Evan Delaney series, 4 in the Joe Beckett series,
Hmm.
and I think called Unsub. Let me see.
Yeah.
Ransom River, The Shadow Tracer, Phantom Instinct. That doesn't
Yeah,
sound
I
familiar to
haven't
me. I don't know if
heard
that sounds
of
familiar
the
to you.
Joe Beckett trilogy or whatever the hell you were talking about there. I don't think that's high literature. What is that, like a PI series or something?
I can't wait to.
No, it's a forensic psychiatrist from San Francisco.
Hmm.
Uh,
All right.
Well, Lopez,
yeah.
what did you think of the book?
I thought I really enjoyed it more than I was expecting to, but it was also uh, difficult to get through in
Hmm.
some parts. I don't know. I found myself more in tune with a lot of Hannah's backstory and the detailing of the home invaders,
Hmm.
and not so much Neil Macaulay, which would probably be the opposite with the film. I think I was more in tune to the Neil Macaulay character in Heat, the
Hmm.
movie, than I
Yeah,
was in the book. And maybe that's just because the audiobook narrator could do like a good Al Pacino impression, not pick up on the synchronicities to De Niro's voice. Maybe, I don't know, but overall, especially for what it is, it's kind of silly calling a book like Heat 2 or just going along with that. It feels very old manish in a way, just like not even thinking about it like that. But um at the same time, I do think it would probably be dismissed if you did like Heat colon the early years or some subtitle like
Yeah.
that. There's not as much excitement and fire around that. But I thought it was good. I thought it was actually very well written and certainly more compelling than a lot of crime novels that I've read that have been published in the last like 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So I would be cautiously optimistic about seeing what that adaptation would look like. I'm not a big fan of, he's talking about casting Timothy Chalamet, I think, is the Hannah character.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's not who I would pick.
You should get
Um,
me to do it.
yeah,
I would do the Vincent Hanna, no problem.
I'll be Neil McCauley. You be Vincent
That'd be
Hanna.
sick. The irony of me being Neil McCauley.
Yeah, well,
Um,
yes, is your name.
but
I thought that was a fake name. I think when we were doing Isolation Chamber, I was
mm,
like, well, I know he loves this movie and the character. I'm like, is this just like, am I gonna call myself like low res? I don't know, Hans. Give me a character I like, quick.
mm.
I don't know, low res Bateman. I don't even like
Loris,
Patrick Bateman that much.
you
That's
wouldn't be
just an
the
easy
first.
one. Yeah.
Loris Hitler. No.
Yes.
um, um, yeah, Timothy Chalamet. No, thank you.
Uh,
The book is took me a long time to get through.
it's dense. I mean, the audio book is what, like 14 hours or something.
Yeah,
That's no joke.
yeah.
So it took me a week or so to, I think, like get through half of it. It is a tall order, but it is very entertaining. Hans,
Yeah.
do you have any interest in checking out Heat 2? The book
I don't
or
read.
a potential
No.
adaptation with Timothy
I
Chalamet?
I tried doing an audiobook with the Keep, and
Another Michael Mann adaptation.
yeah, I don't have the attention span to follow a story like that. So I would just get distracted, and then when I realize that 2 hours have gone by and I have no idea where I'm at in the book, that's why I can't do audiobooks. I was doing a little bit of digging here on Meg Gardner, and her last series that she published from 2017 to 2020 is 3 books of a series called Unsub, and it's about a detective trying to catch the Zodiac killer.
Hmm.
So maybe that's where the relation comes from, or where he thought she would be a good person to write it with, because it's kind of
Well, he's
similar, I
somebody
guess.
who takes extra measures before getting into any of these subjects that I think a lot of filmmakers and authors treat in kind of like a willy nilly fashion. Like even as far as Thief went, his first
Mhm.
theatrical film, he consulted actual jewel thieves and home invaders to make sure that everything was legitimate and read as legitimate on screen. And I know that was the case for some other films, including Heat and LA Takedown as well. He wants to consult those like seedier people to
Mhm.
make sure that it's all going to register as the real deal. So there must be something about her books that has an authenticity to it, even if I'm being dismissive because she writes detective series or whatever in novels. So, but then again, maybe not. Maybe he might have like the Stephen King syndrome of not being able to detect good art in spite of being a great artist. It could be that.
That's possible. I mean, it could just be a pure, it was just like a good fit. Like they had a good relationship. I was talking to Max Thrax, the author of God is a Killer, about Heat 2, and he hadn't read it, but he'd read some excerpts and he was making fun of the writing.
Oh, he
Um,
wasn't a fan.
no, no. And I thought it was it must have been insanely well researched. I mean, like all that stuff about Paraguay and like the
Mm.
Asians living there, and all that stuff about the technology, and of course the guns, the details about the guns. And I'm wondering if that was Michael Mann. I mean,
I feel like that I feel like it was
yeah,
probably I don't know how the writing process worked, but it just feels too his style
I
to
agree.
be, Ghost Rider kind of job. I don't think both of their names would be on it if that wasn't the case. Maybe she, it's entirely possible that she might have did an initial draft and then he went in there and just started punching everything up after maybe giving her an outline or something, just going back and forth in that kind of process. Yeah, the language of the book is very plain spoken. It feels like how a screenwriter, but not like a screenwriter by trade, would write a script, which is
Yeah.
just kind of very tactical, utilitarian, and not flowery with language. If you read like a Shane Black script or something before he started directing, he gets real cute with it. He gets very, and now we're going to do this, and whatever.
Interesting.
I think that's fine to a degree, but what script was I reading recently? Oh, The Day the Clown Cried, the unreleased Jerry Lewis film.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
very excited about what is it, like National Film Archive doing a screening of this movie in 2024, and I wanted to see what the deal was, and so I started posting about it, and someone sent me a copy of the script, which I guess was online, and it's just like, the script was written, I think, in the early 1960s by by a couple, and Jerry Lewis did a one over of the script, but their version of it is just so dense and flat. It reads like a novel almost, and then you get to the dialogue, and people had like a funny way of screenwriting back in the 60s. It's like someone's yelling and it's three exclamation points in a row. It's like talking to like a very hyperactive like girl or something,
Like the reading
it's
live
it just
journal
reads,
entry.
yeah, it's like this is a Nazi prison guard, you know and it's just it reads funny. um but yeah, I can see why, Max might have a problem with that since he's a crime writer,
Yeah,
so yeah, I get that. But I mean, it's easy for me to be able to parse that away and just accept the story on its own terms. And I don't think it was like egregious or anything. Maybe some like cheesy action movie style lines or whatever. But
sure.
what do you expect for Heat 2? So
Yeah. Early in the book, Vincent Hanna kills a guy, kills an informant, like throws him off a building. That was a pretty crazy part of the book.
mhm.
Uh,
You know what was crazy part of Heat when he was hugging that African American mother very aggressively, and then he was like, "Yeah, take her to her family." That
yeah.
that made me chuckle. Yeah.
Well, that Vincent Hanna's a hard motherfucker. Like he's a hard motherfucker. He's a man who's highly motivated and doesn't have much of a life outside of investigating crime,
Mm.
which that's why he's got several marriages behind him,
Mhm.
including
Well,
the one with the lady from Heat and
yeah,
and his stepdaughter.
he cites that as his third marriage. I do think Hannah, maybe out of any of his cop characters, has the most personality, because usually Michael Mann's MO is, this man is just going to be drained by his job and
Right.
completely void of personality and just on his last leg, like the character in Manhunter.
Sure. Will
Um,
Graham.
Mm.
Will Graham is just a complete void of a human by the time he starts the case on the Tooth Fairy. And I think you see similar aspects of that even with um, the Miami Vice remake to a degree, where the Colin Farrell character has this kind of stoic nature to him that's more in line with the Neil McCauley character of Heat than somebody who's very big and cartoonish like Al Pacino's Hannah.
Yeah. You could get killed out walking your doggy. Um he's so funny. He's not as funny in the book.
Mm.
He doesn't have as many classic lines.
Do you think that was just Pacino riffing on the set,
It's
or just?
possible. I mean, it's dude, Al Pacino's amazing. I've been talking to my brother about Al Pacino a lot lately because there were a couple things that I thought. One, okay, so in the in Heat, where he's like singing like Glenn Campbell. He's singing By the Time I Get to Phoenix or whatever. I was wondering, has he ever heard like has Al Pacino heard pop music before? Like, here's what I'm just imagining a guy who like sits around and reads Shakespeare all day. Because he's like a big Shakespeare guy, and
Yeah,
he made that movie about Richard III.
that's right. Yeah,
Um,
I've heard some weird stories about Al Pacino that I would not have placed onto him. Like the first one that kind of caught me by surprise, and this could be telling tales out of school. I don't know if this is true or not. Is that he's like 80 years old, right? But
yeah.
I hear he's a completely functioning heroin addict at 80 years old.
Oh
That's
shit.
impressive.
Yeah, and that's from somebody who firsthand worked on a set with him. I don't know if it's true. Maybe he was just in the mood for a batch one day. I don't know, but
I hope it's true.
it
I
would be
don't know
very
why.
interesting if true. I mean, you can almost see it a little bit, but I don't know. It seems too crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that is crazy.
The other thing, which is verifiable, is he does the Vincent Gallo thing of directing films and never releasing them.
Wow.
So he has films and documentaries and things that he has shot, he has edited, and has no intention of showing to the public. He'll show them privately to people, but that's about it.
Well,
So those are two things that I
that's his
know.
privilege.
Yeah, about
Um, do you
Pacino's
think
personal life.
just about Vincent Gallo? I know where he I know where he lives here in
Your
Arizona.
neighbors.
Ooh, sounds like a
Yeah.
threat.
And hey, Vincent, I know where you live. Okay, I know where you live. No,
We have two pieces of information now. Loris owns his pants, and you know where he lives.
I know kind of where he
So
lives.
we
I think Vincent Gallo is like, does he have relationships?
uh what I mean, from the event that I went to, I'm not allowed to speak of certain things, but I'm going to speak of it anyway. Fuck it. We're in an hour and 10 minutes into a show that Vincent Gallo is going to listen to. Please,
Somebody
uh,
might
he
tell him.
he
Don't tell
hey,
him.
he
do you
showed
want to
up.
just text it and I'll say it since I
Yeah,
didn't sign anything?
yeah. No. I don't think so. I'll spill the beans. He showed up with a date who seemed to be like a blonde woman in her late 30s, and in the middle of the Q&A, he seemed to be more interested in a girl who had asked a question named Lily, who was about 20 years old, and said, "Hi, Vincent. My name's first person to introduce themselves during the Q&A besides Vincent.
Mhm.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm 21, 22. I'm a filmmaker. I just wanted to ask you." And then she asked her question, and then some like frumpy girl asked a question later, and Gallo was like, "Well, you know what Lily was saying before." And after the
Nice.
show, um, Lily approached him and was like, "Hey, do you want to like grab a drink or something?" And he doesn't do anything. He doesn't drink, smoke. He's a vegan, you know. He's like, "Well, how about we go get a glass of water together?" So
Wow.
he's scoring, and
Of course.
somebody who we've had on here before, Stawn of Sewer City TV,
Hmm.
has a dick photo from Vincent Gallo because his ex girlfriend or some female friend hit up Gallo on Instagram and they were getting busy on the World Wide Web.
Amazing.
So he's 61 or something, but he's acting like a 25-year-old.
Hmm.
So that's what
That's
he's up
his
to.
privilege.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing that I was talking about was probably somebody had to explain to Al Pacino what football was before the any given Sunday.
What do you think about that movie, by the
I
way? I
really
got
like
on
it.
I got on an Oliver Stone kick right around the end of 2020, and I just watched a whole lot of his movies that I had never seen. And Any Given Sunday was one of the last movies in that batch that I had checked out. And for somebody who has no interest in football, I thought it was pretty entertaining.
I really like it.
Who do you
Really, really
think?
like it.
Who do you think explained to Pacino what a Dunkachino is from that?
From
What movie
Jack
is
and
that
Jill.
though?
Well,
Yeah.
that would have had to have been Adam Sandler himself, I would expect.
Yeah.
Um,
You
but
know,
I love
something
Al Pacino.
something I got while watching Heat on this go around is I really like the idea of because they've been talking about doing this for ages, and we'll see if it actually happens. I kind of feel like it's only a matter of time. They want to do a Columbo reboot, right?
Oh shit.
I think Pacino would be a terrific choice now that he's older and slower, but he's still sharp to play that character.
Hmm.
Yes. I'm just kind of trying to picture it, but I
Well,
think it sounds great.
I'm
I would love
picturing
this.
him as like his Jewish caricature from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Sure.
You know, kind of just like hunched up like this. He's got bad posture now. He's almost 85. I could see it. I can imagine that
God, that
or
would
what that would
be.
look like.
I mean, he's a whole what, 20 years older than like Columbo, like than Peter Falk was. Peter Falk looked old though.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Falk was doing episodes of Columbo until 2003, and I think he
Jesus
was
Christ.
in his
Oh
mid to late
wow.
70s at that point. And his last episode, I think, was Columbo Loves the Dance Floor, and it was him investigating a rave. It's a
Sick.
horrible episode.
One of my favorite episodes is one he did in the 90s where he goes to college.
Columbo Goes to College. It's a
Yes.
classic episode. Yes.
Love that episode.
That's a good one. I like the '90s episodes so the '70s episodes have like a very serious kind of procedural television back then was very well written when it was done in like increments. So something like Columbo or Kolchak or whatever. Um, it was always well done. And then the '80s they do the revival, right? And I think the quality is mostly maintained, but by the early '90s, late '80s or so, it becomes this kind of cheesy, almost like CSI style version of Columbo, and so there,
Mm.
you get some very entertaining episodes out of that run. And one of my favorites is they bring back William Shatner as a radio show host, and he has like a really off-putting mustache that doesn't look right on his face, and he plays very over-the-top style. Like I think he's like a conservative talk show host, like a Rush Limbaugh type of guy on the show.
Mm.
That one's pretty good too.
How tall is
Uh,
Vincent Gallo?
You know, I couldn't tell if he was wearing boots or something at the event, but he seemed reasonably tall. I thought he was like 5'10" or 5'11",
I see.
which I always thought he was like a 5'9", 5'7" kind of guy.
Oh
But
yeah, I was kind of hoping he'd be 5'7",
mhm.
just because I'm trying to style myself as kind of the next Vincent Gallo.
Is that right? Well, you got the Arizona thing going, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, we're gonna run into each other one day. He lives down in Tucson,
mhm.
but that's where my parents live, so I'm down there all the time. So,
Just hang
I'll,
out around like a bunch of post office PO boxes, and you
sure.
might see him because he's constantly trading parts on eBay and whatnot. I do have the address to his PO box. I could, if you just wanted to like wait there, only be
Okay,
a
let's
matter of
do that.
time.
what?
Man, I
What
don't. Man,
is?
if I was Vincent Gallo, I wouldn't trust you as far as I could throw you. Like, what the fuck, dude? You're giving up all of his shit.
I know.
What is that? I'm sorry, I had to. Let me just show you the mustache that William
Yeah, it's
Shatner is.
Oh
horrible.
my
It's
god,
really bad. It
What
looks
the
like a
hell?
Mickey Rourke mustache now.
dude, the Columbo
Yeah.
villains are all so fucking good.
Do you have a particular favorite,
But
Brendan?
I mean, I'm thinking of was it there was this one. Do you remember that episode where that's like a guy kills Mickey Spillane is in it as a crime writer,
Mm.
and some like agent whose contract is running out with Mickey Spillane kills him while he's dictating his novel. That guy is really good. See, I don't know their names. I mean, obviously Leonard Nimoy was excellent.
Johnny Cash is his episode's pretty well known. I think he's pretty good. He plays like a gospel Christian country singer guy. This is going to be predictable, but my favorite villain is Cassavetes for the season 2 premiere.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one. John Cassavetes as the conductor.
Hmm. That one's
That's an
great.
and he comes in and he touches that woman and she's like, "Oh my God, you made the hair on the back of my neck stand up." And he goes, "That's sex."
That's great.
Yeah.
I read a book on the production of Columbo, where they were detailing how Cassavetes and Falk were just both pains in the ass by the time that Columbo did season two, because Falk had gone off and done a bunch of these Cassavetes movies and had so much like creative freedom as an actor, and then he goes and returns to procedural television where it's the exact opposite of that. And so all of a sudden Falk wants to get in the editing room. He wants to start looking at the episodes before they come out. He's acting more as like a director on these episodes than anything else.
Well,
And then you
yeah,
have Cassavetes come in kind of as a favor to Peter Falk, because I think they were supposed to shoot another episode, and Cassavetes felt like he was slumming it at the time,
sure.
which he probably was. I mean, I think he did Rosemary's Baby like a year or two before,
Mhm.
and
It's weird to
Dirty
think of John
Dozen.
Cassavetes slumming it on network television. Like he was such a maverick
Hmm.
director, that you know what I mean? Like it's not he when you think about John Cassavetes now, you think of him as like this ultimate like indie filmmaker. But I mean, yeah, I mean he had a lot of cachet, I guess, at that time because of the Rosemary's Baby, the
Yeah,
Dirty Dozen.
where he started was procedural television. He did
Yeah.
like a piano playing detective or
Johnny
something.
Johnny
Johnny Staccato.
yeah. Somebody just sent me all the Johnny Staccato episodes. I can't wait to dive in.
I've checked out a few that were uploaded to YouTube because I think they're in the public domain now.
Hmm.
So, that's just something you can check out anywhere. You can buy like a DVD box set from any number of companies, and it's not bad. I mean, all those '50s TV shows are in that kind of style are so interesting to watch because they're trying to figure out what the formula is. They haven't figured it out like they did by the 1960s or 70s. By the time you get either half hour increments or the 42-minute episodes of like Hawaii Five O and those types of shows. So you check out like the private investigator shows, detective shows in the 1950s. They always run a little too long. They're kind of not sure if they want to be like more feature esque or whatever. You
Right.
know, even, some of the comedies even were weird. Like Hans had a recurring joke on another program we were doing about the Goldbergs being his favorite. He thought it was about an Irish family, the sitcom
Yeah.
The Goldbergs. But then we look into it, and there's an old sitcom called The Goldbergs, not the ABC sitcom that exists, and it's about a Jewish family in the 50s, and it's like 55-minute episodes of
That's
the
crazy.
Goldbergs. Yeah, yeah. So it's weird. It's that early stage where they're still trying to
Yeah.
get
Figure
the
out what
idea of it.
television is, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
Staccato's a bit like that.
I see. I see. Well, I'm interested. Dude,
Are
John Cass.
you guys familiar with Mrs. Columbo?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen Miss
I've not seen
Columbo.
it. No.
Oh,
That's
Miss
not
Columbo, is that what
canon. Listen, Miss Columbo dies in a future Columbo episode. Okay, and it's not. There's some things in Miss Columbo the spinoff which I don't think had the approval of, was it Lincoln, whatever the other guy's name is. I don't know. That's not real. Okay, it's
All right.
fake.
It's
It's
two
bullshit.
seasons. It's 13
Mrs. Colombo?
episodes.
Yes, my favorite Columbo theory is that Miss Columbo doesn't exist, that she died, and Columbo just uses her as like a recurring
Yeah.
tool to investigate, prod people.
My wife tells me that. Um, John Cassavetes was 5'7".
Yes,
He wore
yeah.
boots.
He had a I've seen so he would lie about his height, which is what I
Yeah.
learned from a biography. He used to say he was 5'11", which is a great height to say you are if you're lying about your height. Um,
Yeah. That's what I'm gonna start doing.
yeah,
I'm
Hans too.
5'11".
Hans, you're 5'11", right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
I'm a
Hans lies
six
on
four like
IMDb
you.
about being 6'4".
Yeah, you did that. My
Sure, I
girlfriend gave
did.
me shit. She was like, "Why are you lying on the internet?" I was like, "I didn't edit that shit. I don't know. I've never been 6'4" in my life."
Well, listen, if
Uh,
you're taller, then in the scenes we're together in Mass State Lottery, well, then that means I must be pretty tall too,
that's
right?
true.
So,
Yeah,
You
you're
guys gotta
six
yeah,
make me
three.
you guys gotta make me look tall for my movie.
yeah.
Gonna give you lifts. That's one of the things that I like about Heat, that Pacino doesn't wear his lifts, I guess, because he's just like a short guy and still like it still works. He doesn't need, because he has enough personality where it's like, yeah, it's fine that he's a
Pacino's
short
taller
king.
than De Niro.
Oh, is he?
Really?
At least he is now. If you've seen the Irishman photo, maybe it's
They
been
always try.
25 years.
They always make De Niro look taller than he is because
Hmm.
Pacino's only 5'7".
Yeah, but
He's my. I mean, I'm yeah.
on the set of The Irishman, De Niro's wearing huge, thick lifts, and
Yeah, he,
Pacino, I don't believe he is, or his are not nearly as thick. There you
no, he's
go.
not.
So
Yeah, there you go.
you
I'm
remove
sending out when I send
all
out my
that.
headshots. When I send out my headshots, I'm my the copy is, do you want Vincent Clo at Al Pacino's height?
Yeah, how can you not hire that, right?
Regarding Cassavetes though and his height, he had a very unflattering body, especially by the time, well, in like the last 6 or 7 years of his life, when
Hmm.
he developed cirrhosis of the liver.
Gross.
Because he was a huge he was like an alcoholic.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a behind the scenes documentary. I think it's called "I'm Almost Not Crazy" from 1982 or 83, and it's on YouTube, where they show him just kind of like pacing behind the scenes, and he looks frail and tiny, but also has a massive gut, like just
I
a
see.
hard, big gut that doesn't go with the rest of his body, and it's from the alcoholism. It's killing him.
Jesus.
So yeah, and the behind the scenes on Love Streams is so interesting. Uh, in that, I think maybe we talked about this recently on an episode, but it just all came back to mind again because I was trying to acquire a song from his composer Bo Harwood. I reached out to Bo Harwood. Turned out he was dead and rotting when I emailed him. So I hate when that happens.
Dude, that
Um,
sucks.
so I'm not gonna get that song, I guess. Yeah, but
Is
on Love
Mr. Harwood
Streams,
there? And then you just hear crying on the other.
um, he learned as he was working on that film after he had done it as a play with John Voight, who's in Heat, as the character that he would play in that film. He learned as they started shooting, like a week into shooting, the doctor told him, "Yeah, you got a month and you're gonna die." And that's not what happened. He wound up living like 7 more years. The doctor didn't know a fucking thing. But he changed the entire movie to be like, this is the end of my life. This is going to be my goodbye to my family, my friends, fans. And then it ends on a very like somber kind of note that does feel like a goodbye. And then he does this movie called Big Trouble immediately afterward as a favor. Peter Falk loves calling in favors to John Cassavetes because the director of that, it was supposed to be like the In-Laws 2, essentially, with what was it, Alan Arkin and Peter Falk, like a screwball comedy. The
Would you like
director
me to
had like
play?
a
Would you like me
yeah.
to play the trailer? Since I think we've spoken about this a couple of times and we
Yeah, I
never
haven't seen
shown
any
anything.
footage from this movie before, Big Trouble. I just know the story about it. The director, I guess, had a breakdown or something and quit. And Peter Falk was like, I got to finish this movie. Can you come in and do it? And Cassavetes was like, yeah, fine. And that's his final film. It's some screwball comedy that doesn't feel like a Cassavetes movie. All right, play the trailer.
Yeah. Wait, am I sharing an audio?
You are not.
Okay, give me 1 second because it's very goofy music. Sorry about that. Let me see.
Big Trouble in Little Astoria.
Yeah.
What do you get when you cross Peter Falk and Alan Arkin? Big trouble. Leonard Hoffman was in insurance.
I'll have those papers for you tomorrow.
He made a little salary at a little job and came home every night to a little house and a little woman.
Leonard, honey.
Let me explain.
And Leonard had problems.
I've been through this all night long. $14,000 a year. Multiply that by 3, that's $42,000 a year tuition. They want $200,000 to send 3 kids to Yale for 4 years.
Then one day he met an unusual couple.
I gotta sell these Chinese to the Hotel Sheraton.
Sell them.
They don't speak English, but they're lovely
Big idea.
Okay.
Oh wow,
In a week?
Beverly D'Angelo.
That's Pacino's ex-wife.
Make a lot of money, Leonard.
It's my mistake. I have something out here.
Overnight there was a big change in Leonard.
Yeah, this feels so odd as a Cassavetes movie. You know, it feels very Caddyshack 2.
Yeah.
Happens to fall off a train and get killed.
Damn, Caddyshack 2. That's completely accurate.
A big sweat.
I didn't even hear make a sound.
Oh, I did. It was kind of like a.
idea what the odds are of someone dying by falling off a train? Approximately 1 billion to 1. No
Oh,
kidding. Really?
that guy's
A
great.
big mess.
You're all under
Peter
arrest, every
Boyle's
one of you.
hair.
What's that Irish guy?
He's
No,
not in
no.
insurance anymore.
Oop.
He's in big trouble.
Shut up, I hate you! You see, it's a time for killing!
The same team that brought you the in-laws are back again. Peter Falk, Alan Arkin, Beverly D'Angelo, Charles Durning, Valerie Curtin. In big trouble.
Who can function in this atmosphere?
Good God.
Produced and directed by John Cassavetes. So he put his money into that too to see it through. What a good pal.
Well, he really loved Peter Falk.
Yeah. You know, Ben Gazzara directed an episode of Columbo.
Insane.
Renaissance man.
By the way,
Ben
that
Gazzara.
episode of Columbo with William Shatner and his mustache it's in its entirety on the Internet Archive. It's an hour and a half. Very good quality if you want to check it
Yeah,
out.
let's just watch that
It's
right
called
now.
Butterfly. It's called
Well, there's-
Butterfly in Shades of Grey.
There's this so I have this VHS of this movie Camp Nowhere.
Is that a
Which was
Disney
like
movie?
it's not a Disney movie, but it was a kids movie, and it was basically a vehicle for Christopher Lloyd, and he's great in it. It's basically about these kids who trick or like blackmail this former middle school teacher into pretending to be a camp counselor so that they can go to this camp and just be totally in control. And it's got Andrew Keegan in it, and anyway, but I have the VHS and I've watched it 100 times. And there's this trailer for this movie called Roommates, which was made around the same time, 1995, starring Peter Falk. And he plays this guy has to move in with his grandpa. This adult man has to become roommates with his grandpa, and he's like trying to fuck or whatever. And you know, Peter Falk's like, I didn't know that my house was a bordello. You know, like
I've
it's
never heard of this film.
but I've never seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer of it 100 times. But it's good. It looks good. There he is.
That's Peter Falk in the movie. They did him up like that.
I
Holy
guess
shit!
so. I guess he wasn't old enough, or
Oh,
He looks like
That's
when the
fascinating.
Jackass guys wear those old suits.
yeah.
you know, my dick doesn't work anymore.
Oh man,
But
I'm
there's-
gonna watch this movie.
The trailer's excellent because it just has Peter Falk. It's one of those trailers where they like interview Peter Falk. He's like he's just like sitting there. He's like, the character of Rocky is, you know, he's like talking about the character.
Mm.
Anyway, it's
Let me see, I found it.
it's for all
It's
the
about
Peter Falk cells out there to
You know,
check
his
out.
his film career is pretty strange, especially as you get to like the last 20. Everything after Cassavetes dies is pretty peculiar or questionable. Didn't he do Corky Romano, the Chris Kattan starring
I think
vehicle
I
from
think you're
2001?
Bang on, yeah, I think so.
All right, let's take a look at this TV trailer for Roommates. Hollywood Pictures, Buena Vista Company.
Starring Peter Falk as a character who belongs in every family.
The Rocky in a movie is based on a real guy. My grandson is moving in here with me.
Papa, be reasonable.
Is that a Culkin?
And family got nothing to do with one another. Most people, you know, when they hit 85, somebody's holding their elbow, helping them up the stairs. But not Rocky.
They're gonna come in here and get you.
I just wouldn't want to be the first guy through the door.
Will you just listen
I
to
think
me?
they threw away the mold when they made Rocky.
Did you have Barney?
We had rats. Big rats. There was a profound attachment between the grandson and the grandfather. And when Michael had kids, he was there for his kids.
I love you, Rocky.
Oh, you're not too bad yourself. And when it came to a
So
crime,
heartwarming.
he's the one guy you would always depend on. Family takes care of family.
Roommates, rated PG, starts Friday, March 3rd.
Excellent.
Peter Yates directed that.
PG starts Friday.
Oh, that's what I wanted to stop.
Peter
Yeah.
Yates did
Yates.
what was it? Breaking Away and Friends of Eddie Coyle, which I referenced earlier. George V.
Yep.
Higgins.
Julianne Moore, Ellen Burstyn.
Yeah.
Damn. Ellen Burstyn. Are you excited? Ellen Burstyn's coming back to the Exorcist franchise finally after 55, 60, 70 years.
that must be the bitch Peter Falk smashing in the movie. Um, I was gonna say, I understand the trailer now. It didn't occur to me why they had Peter Falk in the interview chair. It's so that you know that it's Peter Falk in the fucking
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
Right.
You
He
can't tell
looks
it's
more
him.
like Ed Asner in character or
Yeah.
something. Wow, I had no idea he was, he was into doing makeup kind of performances, doing the special effects. That's intriguing. I'm going to look into this movie and see if it's available somewhere. All right, what more can we say about Heat,
Yeah.
about Peter Falk, about Vincent anything, everything.
Why
Brendan,
doesn't
have you
Michael
watched
Mann?
anything? Have you watched anything good lately?
Well, you know what? I got to admit, I haven't been watching a whole hell of a lot of movies. And I've referenced this on my show a couple times now, but I went to the theaters uh at the Arizona Mills Mall and I
Hmm.
saw Event Horizon on the big screen.
What?
Nice.
They were playing
Yeah,
Event Horizon.
yeah, it was like a Halloween deal.
Hmm.
And man, I'd never seen it before. And it was good.
You know,
Paul,
I've never seen it before because I feel like that was during that time period where, especially if you're a child, right? This is very child thinking. If there are two similar movies that are released at the same time, or too similar of anything, you go with one and then you ignore the other completely. So I think that came out around the same time as like Armageddon,
mm,
and Armageddon was the pick for me. So
well,
I
I
have
think
never seen Event Horizon.
are you thinking of Deep Impact?
Oh yeah, I might be thinking of Deep
Yeah.
Impact.
Because this movie's more like it takes place on a spaceship and
Hmm.
Sam Neill is in it and Lawrence Fishburne and then all these really high quality like English
Oh
people.
yeah, Paul W.S. Anderson did this movie, right?
It's by Paul
His best
W.S.
movie. Yeah.
Thomas Anderson,
Hmm.
and it's great. I give it. I'm basically one of those people who's like, I don't give movies like the star rating or whatever. I just like give it like the thumbs up or the thumbs down. This is a thumbs up for sure. And it was right before, it was in the late 90s. And it was right before, well, really right around the time that they started like putting like electronic music in movies. Like, if you remember The Saint with Val Kilmer, and it had
Oh
that,
yeah.
and then The Matrix later, and there's a lot of electronic music in it, but and Michael Kamen does the score, but he does it with like the Chemical Brothers or some shit
Oh
like that.
wow. Hmm.
And it's pretty great. I also watched a couple of because I'm not really a horror movie guy at all. Like the cheesy horror, the 70s, the 80s, the slashers. I don't know much about that shit. But I wanted to investigate the Halloween franchise a little more.
Hmm.
And I watched Halloween 2, and then I watched Halloween 3, which I guess is like not even really canonically a
Yeah.
Halloween movie. Like it's like a completely different movie. And it kind of I didn't like it that much. I wasn't my style.
Oh, that's the 1983 audience brain.
Yeah,
That people hate it. They showed up to the theater like, what the fuck? Where's Michael? What is
yeah.
this?
It was
I like
weird.
it. I think it's a creepy, but like not creepy as in the movie's creepy, but just like creepy that someone would think up this idea
It's
of
such a
like,
crazy idea.
yeah,
And yeah, and I love the main character is like just like an alcoholic doctor who like
mm,
is a ladies' man for some
yeah.
reason. Which, that's
uh,
pretty good.
Lores, I got good news for your VHS collecting. I was able to
Oh,
find something on eBay that you might be interested in.
oh,
Because
I'm not even gonna lie to you. As soon as we
for
watched that trailer, I was
$9.
thinking, I wonder if I can get a videotape of it for under $5. Great! I can't wait
Go
to
for
Yeah.
it.
purchase my first. What was it? Hollywood Video, I think it was the distributor.
Oh
Film.
yeah.
They put out Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, 1993.
That's a banger. That's a VHS classic. Got to have that on
Yeah,
VHS.
John Leguizamo classic.
I've got a pretty significant VHS collection.
I threw a lot of mine out, which I kind of regret because I thought this is over, and into the garbage. And in actuality, I probably could have made a cool $7 off of every single one of those tapes if I just had an eBay store. So rats.
Yeah, maybe is that what I need to do for a living? Is sell videotapes for $7 a pop?
I mean, depending on how many tapes, it could be profitable. I don't know.
Listen, I can't do the show, fellas. I'm moving tapes. Um,
But
regarding Michael Mann,
are you guys excited about Michael Mann's Ferrari?
Yeah. Yeah, actually I like the balls of him to do that after what was it? They did the Ferrari movie, Ford versus Ferrari, that he was a producer on. He was going to direct it originally, and he got caught up doing something else, and he still produced it. And I guess he was just like, "Yeah, not a fan of this. I'm going to go do my own Ferrari movie, even though I said you could do it, but I'm going to do it anyway." So,
nice. What did he
I,
get caught up doing? Was he on some kind of sex vacation in Thailand or something?
I think so. I think that's what
Um,
the word was. Yeah.
but so here was my original impression of what Heat 2 was all about, was just that he wasn't gonna even be able to make another movie,
Mm.
and so he did it as a book. But I guess it just was something where he could, I don't know, what were his motivations for making a book?
I'm not sure. Obviously, since with Tokyo Vice, he didn't really have any involvement at all.
Yeah.
That was just more of a respectful title, the executive producer title that he got on that, aside from directing the first episode. So I don't know. Black Hat came out in what, 2016 or so,
Still haven't
and
seen it. I need to see it.
it was better than I expected. And the director's cut is pretty solid too. There was a composite going around of someone had workshopped it basically using the deleted scenes and certain scenes that were only included in like a television cut of the movie. And I don't know. I thought the criticism it got was kind of a little over the top compared to what
Yeah.
was actually in the movie.
There's haters, dude, around every fucking corner.
Big time haters. I think
Um,
people just didn't want to go along with the idea of Chris Hemsworth as hacker guy. You
yeah,
know?
A
that's fair.
giant muscular hacker.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, hey, it was a lot of nerds were mad, probably. They were like, hey, look, like, don't, our culture is not a costume. Um, okay, so I want to get your advice on something. But I want to, but by way of asking you a question,
Sure.
have you ever watched anything by Jacques Rivette?
I don't think so.
Okay. So he made this movie called Out One, which is like 13 and a half hours. It was originally supposed to be on French television, but it got a really short, maybe like 1, 2 screening theatrical release back in the day. It's from the 70s, early 70s. And then later on, it kind of became this one of those like white whales of of cinephilia, where nobody could see it for a long time. And then they released it, and it toured the country at like all the art houses, and people would go and watch it, and like I think they would watch it in like 2 days. It would be like a two-parter.
Yeah.
And it's this really freewheeling, kind of confusing, really playful plot about these two competing acting troops who aren't doing much of anything really, other than doing these like crazy like acting exercises and shit. And then suddenly this like kind of like this conspiracy emerges that may or may not be real about the 13. Well, anyway, it's one of Jacques Rivette is one of my favorite artists, and I want to do this like Rivettian web series behind my Patreon paywall, the Tales from the Mall. I want to like use that to put out this like maybe like 15-minute episodes each
Mhm.
about this guy who's he's a director. He's like directing a play, and he's kind of a mess. Not a very serious person, but he's directing a play, and he's also like obsessed with women, and he keeps the play keeps getting sidetracked because he keeps adding more and more members to the play, because he keeps finding new women that he kind of like gets obsessed with, and he like
Mhm.
casts them, and in the meantime, like the local reader, like you guys have the Village Voice or whatever,
Right.
the local reader in Phoenix or whatever is like me tooing him. And I want to do it, and I just want to do it on my iPhone. But I need somebody to help me with like just really simple the sound, because the sound is on my
Sounds important.
iPhone sucks.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to. I don't want to deal with it. But if I could just get a guy to help me with the sound, like Craigslist would take care of the rest in terms of casting and all that. What would you do? What-
Well, what you do is, first of all, you got to get a separate device for the sound, and I would
yeah,
recommend a.
I have like a Tascam like handheld recorder. I don't know, like.
That generally will pick up too much of the atmosphere, too much of the environment that you're in. You
Mhm.
want to get focused. I would do lavaliers. So if someone has like an iPhone or something, oftentimes what you can do, the voice memo app on any iPhone is a lot better than it probably deserves to be. And
Mhm.
you can get a good deal of like clean audio from that. And if you have a lavalier that's plugged into an iPhone and you can detect that it's working correctly, we've done that before in the past, and that is a very cheap and efficient way of being able to do that, being able to sneak that. If you don't want to dish out like $70 for a Zoom, uh, like little microphone where you
Yeah, because
essentially are doing the same thing.
I mean, if I did the lavaliers, like then it could just be me essentially, like
Hmm.
you know, set the camera up on a tripod because I want it to be like super simple, like three locations maybe, like one indoor location that's like where the guy is producing his play, like a black box theater, kind of setting. It could, I mean, originally I thought it would just be my apartment, but that's not going to work. Um, because I live with my grandpa. No, 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 because but yeah, I just want it to be like super simple, because I'm not a filmmaker really, and I don't want to have to worry about it. I just want it to be driven mostly just by the frame, the
Yeah.
plot, and like the hot women that I get to be in it.
Well, I think you do a very good job with the bumpers for Tales from the Mall.
Yeah.
You know, you say you're not a filmmaker, but those are some very entertaining and well edited pieces. Do you like outsource that
Well,
or?
that okay, that was the product of a collaboration with this guy named Matt,
Mhm.
who lives in New Hampshire, and he would just tell me what to do and how to shoot it, and then he would edit it real quick. But he was like he would come up with these like really um complex ideas that I would have to execute. And sometimes I would be too scared to execute them. Like he would be like, okay, he's like, for this one, I want you to go to the mall. I want you to go in the mall and I want you to like scream like I need pussy or and I would be like, I don't know if I can do that.
You go to this mall like 3 times a week. I don't know if you can really
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he would want me to like approach people and ask them to be in it. And it was getting to be where I kept having to tell him like I can't, I'm sorry. And so lately, the bumpers I've been doing have just been me shooting it myself and
Mm.
really simple stuff, Stan Brackage style, more like, just kind of like avant-garde stuff. But the like
Hmm.
more story-driven stuff was really the product, a big. He's a really and he's in advertising, so he knows what like pops and what is good for short stuff um. But I would have to edit this thing. I'm picturing editing myself and so I have to keep it really simple.
Hmm. Well, I like the idea of it. I think that's a very charming idea for a series
Thanks.
that I would be interested in checking out, and I will check out
Is
since I'm a
this
I,
patron of
I,
Tales
I
from the
hope it.
Mall.
Thank you. And Jay, your patronage is like so important to me. It keeps the lights on, man. And the more people should really be a patron of the show. I feel like a lot of
What's the
people.
link?
It's patreon.com/tales from the mall. And at $5, you get access to an archive of, at this point, I think it's like 75 episodes.
Yeah,
Interview
you've crushed the amount of like like you started this what like late last year,
this
right?
time last year.
And you have about 85 episodes out or
Yeah.
so. You have done an insane amount of recording for this program.
Well, you know what? It's a compulsion at this point. But interviews with great minds like Jay Corrales, Jaime Corrales, and
I mean, mhm.
who else? Just I mean, you
Max
name it.
Thrax.
Max Thrax, he's been on the show a couple times now. The Howling Mutant,
Yeah.
Blauergeist, just all kinds of e-girls have been on it, and it's basically it's like Mark Marone, but for like Twitter personalities.
That's a good way to advertise it. Now, have you ever considered opening a store at that mall called Tales from the Mall? And it's a pet store, and it's like dog and cat tails.
That I I've considered that. There is a pet store at the mall. It's called Animal Kingdom. Not every state has allows there to be like commercial pet stores anymore,
Hmm.
especially at the mall. They do in Arizona. It's kind of sad.
Oh, really? The,
Yeah,
the
because you've
animals
got
don't
like
seem
these
happy.
dogs. I mean, dogs
Yeah.
living in a fucking cage in the mall, and it's all dogs. It's all dogs, and
Yeah, they're
people,
probably tormented smelling Auntie Anne's pretzels just
oh God.
downstairs.
There's this part of the mall where there's the Animal Kingdom, there's this popcorn stand, and there's the hippie store with like all the like incense, and the smell just like meets at one point, and it's like the worst smell in the world.
Yeah, I can't imagine because I understand going to the mall and just getting a weird whiff of different smells, different. It's like if there's a Hot Topic and a Johnny Rockets in the same
Yeah,
vicinity of each
exactly.
other. It's not
And
good.
there's always a hot topic.
Always. I don't know who's still shopping there, but good for them, I
I think it's
guess.
people our age who are like, "Oh, I want a My Chemical Romance shirt." Like
What
that.
is it? A
Mm.
Rick and Morty shirt and Rick and
Yeah,
Morty poster?
a Baby Yoda hat with like
Right.
the stoner hat with like the dangling, but it's Baby Yoda. I don't
Of
know.
course.
I have to get one of those.
All right. Well, if you guys haven't already, go subscribe to Brendan's podcast, Tales from the Mall. Check out his Patreon. And I look forward to everything you do, Brendan. You're a great creative mind. And
Thank you.
thank you for coming on the show today and talking about Heat.
Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure. I love the show. My
Well,
favorite podcast.
thank you, Brandon. Thank you. All right. Well, that has been Movies for this week. Thank you for listening.